Origin of species. Chapter 1. Variation and domestication caused by variability. When we compare the individuals of the same variety or sub-variety of our older cultivated plants and animals, one of the first points which strikes us is that they generally differ more from each other than do the individuals of any one species or variety in a state of nature. And if we reflect on the vast diversity of the plants and animals which have been cultivated and which are varied during all ages under the most different climates and treatment, we are driven to conclude that this great variability is due to our domestic production have been raised under condition of life not so uniform as and somewhat different from those to which the parent species have been exposed under nature. There is also some probability in the view pronounced by Andrew Knight that this variety may be partly connected with excess of food. It seems clear that organic beings must be exposed during several generations to new conditions to cause any great amount of variation, and that when the organization has once begun to vary, it generally continues varying for many generations. No case is on record of a variable organism ceasing to vary under cultivation. Our oldest cultivated plants, such as wheat, still yield new varieties. Our oldest domesticated animals are still capable of rapid improvement or modification. As far as I am able to judge, after long attending to the subject, the conditions of life appear to act in two ways: directly on the whole organization, or on certain parts along, and indirectly by affecting the reproductive system. With respect to the direct action, we must bear in mind that in every case, as Professor Weinman have lately instead, as I have incidentally shown in my work on variation and domestication, there are two factors, namely the nature of the organism and the nature of the conditions. The former seems to be much the more important for nearly similar variations sometimes arise, and as far as we can judge, dissimilar conditions, and on the other hand, dissimilar variations arise under conditions which appear to the nearly uniform. The effective on the offspring are either definite or indefinite. They may be considered as definite when nearly all the offspring of individuals exposed to certain conditions during several generations are modified in the same manner. It is extremely difficult to come to any conclusion in regard to the extent of the changes which have been thus definitely induced. There can, however, be little doubt about many side changes, such as same from the amount of food, color from the nature of the food, thickness of the skin and hair from climate, etc. Each of the endless variation which we see in the plumage of our fall must have had some efficient cause, and if the same cause were to act uniformly during a long series of generations, many individuals will probably be modified in the same manner. Such factors, the complex and extraordinary growth which variably follow from the insertion of a minute drop of poison by a goal-producing insect shows as well similar modification might result in the case of plants from a chemical change in the nature of the sap. Indefinite variability is a much more common result of changed conditions than definite variability, and has probably played a more important part in the formation of our domestic races. We see indefinite variability in the dangerous slight peculiarity which distinguish the individuals of the same species, and which cannot be accounted for by inheritance from either parent or from some more remote ancestor. Even strongly marked differences occasionally appear in the young of the same litter. An inseedling from the same seed capsule along intervals of time out of millions of individuals liquid in the same country and fed on near the same food, deviation of structure so strongly pronounced as to deserve to be called monstrosity to arise. But monstrosities monstrosities cannot be spread by any distinct line from slight variations. Also changes of structure, whether extremely slight or strongly marked, which appear among many individuals living together, may be considered as the indefinite effects of the conditions of life on each individual organism in nearly the same manner as they actually affect different men in an indefinite manner, according to their taste of body or constitution, causing cough or colds, rheumatism, or inflammation of various organs. With respect to what I have called the indirect action of changed conditions, namely through this reproductive system being affected, we may infer that variability is thus induced partly from the fact of this system being extremely sensitive to any change in the conditions, and partly from the similarity as a color and other heavily marked between the variability which follows from the crossing of distinct species, and that which may be observed with plants and animals when rare and new or unnatural conditions. Many facts clearly show how eminently susceptible the reproductive system is to very slight changes in the surrounding conditions. Nothing is more easy than to tame an animal, and few things more difficult than to get it to breed freely and confinement, even when the male and female unit. How many animals there are which will not breed, though kept in an almost free state in their native country. This is generally by erroneously attributed to betated instincts. Many cultivated plants display the utmost vigor, and yet rarely or never seed. In some few cases, it has been discovered that the very trifling changes, such as a little more or less water at some particular period of growth, will determine whether or not the plant will produce seeds. I cannot here give the detail which I have collected and elsewhere published on this curious subject, but to show how singular the laws are which determine the reproduction of animals and the complement. I may mention that carnivorous animals, even from the tropics, breed in this country pretty freely and confident, with the exception of the plantigrades or berry family, which seldom produce young, whereas carnivorous, with the rarest exception, hardly ever lay fertile eggs. Any exotic plants holding utterly worthless in the same condition as the most sterile hydrates, when on the one hand we see domesticated animals and plants, though often weak and sickly, breeding firmly under confinement, and when on the other hand we see individuals, though taken young, from a state of nature perfectly turned, long-lived and healthy, of which I could give numerous instances, yet having their reproductive system so seriously affected by unperceived cause as to fail to act. We need not surprised at this system, when it does act under confinement, acting irregularly, and producing offspring somewhat unlike their parents. I may add that as some organisms breed freely under the most unnatural conditions, for instance rabbits and ferrets kept in hutches, showing that their reproductive organs are not easily affected, so with some animals and plants which stand domestication or cultivation under very best slightly, perhaps hardly more than in a state of nature. Some naturalists have maintained that all variations are connected with the act of sexual reproduction, but this is certainly an error. I have given in another work a long list of sporting plants, as they are called by gardeners, that is, of plants which have suddenly produced a signal bud with a new and sometimes widely different character from that of the other buds on the same plant. These bud variations, as they may be named, can be propagated by grafts, offsets, etc., and sometimes by seeds. They occur rarely under nature, but are far from rare under culture, as a single bud out of many thousands produced year after year on the same tree under uniform conditions, have been certainly to assume a new character announced parts on distinct trees growing under different conditions have sometimes yielded nearly the same variety. For instance, buds and fig trees producing nectarines and buds on common rose producing more rose. We clearly see that the nature of the condition is of subordinate importance in comparison with the nature of the organism in determining each particular form of variation, perhaps of not more importance than the nature of the spark by which a mass of combustible matter is ignited, as in determining the nature of the flames.